A viral video has gone all across the country showing a Winston-Salem State University student. This story is absolutely crazy, folks. This student who was arrested in an altercation with a white professor. Okay? So check this out. It's a TikTok video. It shows 20-year-old Leilla Hamoud getting arrested by University Police Officer Michael Rau. Watch this.
I'm not resisting. You're hurting me really bad, bro. Please get off of me.
And she's still standing there letting this happen. Like,
exactly.
Trying to de-escalate.
I hate you.
It already escalated. She's about to come out and hit him.
I swear to God, I hate you. I swear to God, I hate you. I swear to God, I hate you, bro. You're the worst teacher ever. You can get me taken out of here because I want to apologize. Because I want to apologize. You started yelling at me. You trying to embarrass me about my paper. You're a terrible teacher.
Is somebody recording this? Oh, everybody is. I hope you're recording everybody. Because that's ridiculous. Yes, that really is. For letting this shit happen. She sit here and say she loves black people and stuff, but you let this happen to her? Come on now. No, you yelled at her first. You yelled at her first, but you want her to apologize. It doesn't make any sense.
You hear everybody in the class say, I have look at my grades and my GPA. I graduated by 8 points. I'm not no dumb bitch. I'm not stupid, Dr. V. The whole class.
I'm so mad.
If anybody is valedictorian, bitch.
So mad.
What the hell?
That you let her walk out your handcuffs. Yeah, you were yelling at her. You were yelling at her. That's ridiculous. That's BS. I'm saying. BS. I'm like.
I'm trying to say I'm sorry.
That's.
You're the worst teacher I've ever had in my fucking.
Leila posted this video to explain exactly what happened in the classroom.
Distracting. So basically, we had a group project assigned as a final, which is probably the dumbest thing, but I'm not here to critique her on her learning. We had a group final. We had to write a paper, and we had to also make up a skit for our group to present. It was 7 of us. I did most of writing the skit just because I wanted to. It was easy and it was fun for me. Well, I thought it was easy. I did the essay as well. She got back to me late, 6 hours before we had to present, actually, saying that my essay was completely wrong and I should revise it, all this shit. And I'm just like, I'm not going back and redoing this essay. That took me 2 weeks and you told me 6 hours before. I'm not redoing it. And I think I'm pretty okay for that. Ew, my camera is dirty. I think that wasn't a bad idea of not redoing it. I didn't feel any type of way, and I still came to the final to present with my group because that was what we were supposed to do. I did not say anything when I did come into the class because, like I said, I was already frustrated at the fact that she told me my whole essay was wrong. So I come into class and didn't say anything to her. She's talking. She's assigned us to our groups, and we're going to talk about what we're doing for the project before we actually have to do it. So I'm talking to my group members and come present it. So we talked about that, and she was like, well, it is wrong and you should redo it because it's going to greatly impact your grade. Once again, said I did not care about that because I'm only here to present with my group so that my group does not get a 0 on this. Well, I got hella views. Well, look at my story. So, boom, she starts getting loud. She starts yelling at me, telling me this is her class, so it doesn't matter what I think. I'm getting loud back. I'm not going to sit here and lie to you guys. I got loud back. I was raising my voice too. I'm like, Dr. V, like, you're yelling at me. I'm not going to redo it. I'm here to present with my group. Like, I'm here to get this done and get out. And she's like, you need to get out. Like, I want you to leave. And I'm like, leave? No, like, I'm here for my group project. Turn the comments off. How do I do that? And she told me to get out of the classroom, and I literally refused. I was like, I'm not going to leave. This is our final exam, and I didn't do anything wrong other than responding to what you said to me because I did not say anything to her. She's telling me to get out of the class. I'm like, no, I'm not going to. She's upset at this point. She leaves, and she's talking to another teacher in the hallway. At that point, I guess, is when they decided to call the police, campus police. Campus police comes, and it is a black officer at first. I'm not usually one to mention race. But I think it is a little bit necessary in this instance because I do go to a historically black college, and for this to happen to me and it be so provoked by people who are not of black descent, it hurts. So I feel like I do have to mention that. The black officer comes in, he asks me what's going on. I tell him everything. The class is telling him everything. As I'm telling my story, my professor comes back in. Yes, officer, I want her taken out. I'm like, whoa. He's like, whoa, I'm talking to her, I'm listening to her, so wait. We're talking, another officer comes in, and he is a white officer. He comes in, and he's like, okay, so your options are you're gonna get out of the class, or I'm gonna have to take you out. I'm like, what? Like, take me out? Take me out how? So, yeah, like they said, it is important because the black officer, he's a very well-known officer on our campus. He's never given anybody any problems. He's actually pretty cool, and he was doing his best to not arrest me. He was trying to have a conversation, and the white officer came in and was like, yeah, you're either going to get out or I'm going to have to get you out. And I'm like, okay. At this point, I'm like, Dr. V, you're going to let them arrest me? And she's like, yes, Dr. V, Dr. Villagomez, Cynthia Villagomez. Yes, say that name in here so y'all know who we're emailing about, because I'm sending emails. My class is sending emails. Friends are sending emails. Send an email. If not, that's okay too. I'm not pressuring you. So the white officer comes in. He says that. I said that to Dr. V, and she's like, wait, hold on. She's trying to, like, you know, fix herself. She's like, okay, either apologize or you need to leave. I said apologize. Now, the old me, I'm sure I would have apologized, but at that moment, I knew that I was not the one in the wrong. I didn't start the situation. I didn't escalate the situation. I knew I was not wrong. So I'm just like, okay, apologize for what? Apologize because you yelled at me and you dropped the F-bomb? Yes, I did drop the F-bomb and told you I'm not fucking stupid. That's what I told you. So I'm sorry the F-bomb hurt your feelings. So sorry, baby. We're grown. If that was worth an arrest, let me know. Let me know. According to my mom, it wasn't. But continuing, I said, Dr. V, are you going to apologize to me? I came in, I sat with my group, I didn't say anything to you. You decided to start yelling at me as soon as the fire alarm went off about my essay. So she was like, no, I'm not going to apologize. I'm like, what? So then I'm like, wait, well, tell me what I'm apologizing for. Tell me what I'm apologizing for. At that moment, I'm talking to the black officer. I'm talking to my professor. The white officer is like, yeah, go ahead and take her. You have to go get her. To the black officer. So the black officer is like, okay, turn around. I'm about to put these handcuffs on you.
All right, folks, Winston-Salem State released a statement. Here is what they said. We received a report that there was a significant commotion in Carolina Hall this morning. And as such, a WSSU employee nearby called for the assistance of law enforcement after they tried to de-escalate the situation. We understand that the weaponization of police is a prevalent problem in our community. However, that is not what happened in this incident. We strive for a safe, inclusive, thriving, and intellectual community where all our faculty, staff, and students feel respected and supported. To that end, we will take swift and appropriate measures against any situation that contradicts those ideals. Now, here's the deal. When you look at this Rate My Professor, this professor does not get good ratings. She gets a 2.5 out of 5 when of course being evaluated from students. I want to go to you, Erica, because when we're talking about cases like this, I mean, this is, I can't imagine. Look, I've been in classrooms where there have been debates back and forth with teachers, with professors, and nobody called the cops.
Right.
And I'm sorry. I don't care what. First of all, I'm trying to understand, why would a staffer in another classroom who's not in the classroom, even if you hear yelling, how do you say, oh, let's call the cops? To me, this is just me. If I'm an adult and I hear yelling, I'm going to go visit the classroom to see if I can help de-escalate, not call the cops.
Right. Exactly. But see, we have the presence of Karens on HBCU, so the story is a little different. I think what was very interesting about that statement that was issued, you know, the top and the bottom, and then you have this one line about the weaponization of police. And then the very firm, but this was not the case. I'm really glad that Leila's mother is there to support her, because I'm going to assume that she is the one, you know, her family's the one that takes care of her tuition. And just thinking back to 2017, at the beginning of the Son of a Klansman's administration, where we saw the numbers of students that were enrolling to HBCUs, my son at Morehouse was, you know, he was no different from those numbers of kids. And so just thinking about that, kids were actually enrolling in HBCUs because of the real intense racism, everything that came with the Son of Klansman's regime, all of that they were feeling. very young students and said that they wanted a place of safe haven, protection, in academia. And that's what it brought to them. So what I love is really the stand that Leila has, that she has already started shooting off emails. She got email city rock and rolling. She has the support of her classmates. She has the support of her friends. She has the support of her family. And I think that when you have a person that really understands where they're coming from, that gives that institution a lot more to deal with. So really kudos to Leila and really shame on this institution for the way that they have, what it seems like, really has backed up someone who, if they would have done a cursory search, what you did, Roland, would have seen that she's been problematic for quite some time. But I'll stop here because Reese did an eloquent summary on this earlier that I would encourage everyone to go to Black Men Women Views Media, Instagram, Twitter, to just listen to what the response was to this situation.
But before I go to Reese, I want to go to Larry. Larry, you're a professor. Based upon what you see here and what you've heard described, how do you handle that situation?
So, Roland, I'm looking at this from a number of perspectives. I'm an HBCU alum. My son is also currently enrolled in HBCU. And as you mentioned, I'm a college professor. So sometimes you have conversations with students, debates in class. And, this is what higher ed is. You engage in, passionate discussions. But this is really a failure. This is a failure by the professor. And I watched the young lady's, her entire Instagram and in terms of her video, in terms of her describing everything that happened from beginning to end. And as an instructor, first of all, and we even know this, we're not just predominantly white institutions, but HBCUs, and you saw this, and this is a situation that law enforcement can be deployed and also be responsible for creating more trauma for Black students. You should never call law enforcement unless we're talking about violence in terms of my using a weapon or a knife or some other situation. I would have never called law enforcement. I've never gotten to the point where I had to call law enforcement for a student. I currently teach at a predominantly white institution. I've also taught at HBCU. I have never engaged in it and gotten things that gotten that heated or what I felt like it was dangerous and my life was in the line. This professor didn't take the necessary steps in terms of whatever feedback she was giving her in her paper, in terms of a realistic timeline to say she needed to rewrite the paper. That was also a misstep. And then engaging in that student in class. Now, if she decided to engage her, she should engage her after class and had a conversation showed a level of respect, because you heard the young lady say she felt like she was being disrespected. It is also a failure on law enforcement. Once again, the white police officer comes in after Black police officers having a conversation and then instructs her to take this young lady outside the classroom and arrest her. That is uncalled for. And then lastly, Roland, it is a failure by the president and other administrative leaders to put that statement out. And they put out another statement before that. But the bottom line is, overall, for people who think this professor should be fired, I will remind them she is tenured and that it is difficult to fire tenured professors. I've seen it in my institution. I've seen it in other institutions. But overall, this is a failure in terms of leadership in the institution. This is an absolute failure by the professor to call police on a young sister who attended an HBCU because they are supposed to be safe spaces. And then lastly, we can't allow this to happen. And I hope that the professor face repercussions.
So, control room, do y'all have the video from Tennessee State? Okay. So, y'all remember, it was just a couple of weeks ago. This happened at HBCU Tennessee State.
I said, what is your name? Out, get out. You're failed this course, whatever your name is. Out! 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 Out!
That white teacher was yelling in the face of a Black student. That video went viral. That teacher knew what was coming down, Reese. He quit the next day. What do you have to say?
Well, I want to be clear about a couple of things. Number one, this is not simply a case of the police removing Leila from the classroom. She was handcuffed, aggressively manhandled. The weight of this police officer was put on a 5'2" petite young lady. She doesn't look so petite in that video because she has a big sweater on, but she showed that she's a skinny little, short thing. She was handcuffed for hours. She was transported to a jail and charged before a judge with 2 misdemeanors. I know that people don't like mouthy Black girls. I know that people don't like Black girls getting out of turn, getting, not showing deference to people. But you cannot tell me that it is a proportionate response to getting mouthy with a teacher who started the interaction being a little aggressive. You cannot tell me 2 misdemeanor charges are appropriate for that situation. If you think that, there's something wrong with you, and I'm surprised you're even watching this program to begin with.
Right.
I think we all could concede that perhaps she could have just left the room, but she was not given that chance by the police officers before he handcuffed her. As far as she understands, she's having a conversation, as she's probably had many times with a professor, as you should be allowed to have in an environment that's supposed to be safe and inclusive for intelligent, bright, young Black people. She was valedictorian, and we want our HBCUs to recruit the best and the brightest. So the kind of conversation that she was having at that moment did not warrant being handcuffed. And I've been in a situation because I've had a conversation, I've been in conversation in front of a white police officer where arbitrarily he decided that he was going to handcuff me and haul my Black ass out. And I was in stiletto high heels, dressed up, got my boots out. I was looking good. I was in Vegas. And he decided, okay, I'm done with this Black bitch. She got to go. She got to get arrested. Now I acted a plumb fool and I didn't get arrested. But I was still handcuffed. My arms were sore the next day. I was like, why are my arms sore? What happened? Then I remember, okay, this cop was manhandling me. So I know how arbitrary these situations can be where a cop just decides in the middle of a conversation, I'm just going to fuck with this girl because she's a Black woman and I can. So I just want that to be clear. This wasn't a situation where she was simply removed out of the classroom. Perhaps she should have just left the classroom, but she didn't. And just because you don't act in exact accordance with how you're expected to act does not give anybody license to escalate it and disproportionately respond to the point to where she, as a bright young student, is facing 2 misdemeanor charges. And then one other thing I will say is not only did this teacher abuse her power and weaponize the police. It's absurd for this school and this institution to say that the police weren't weaponized in this situation. But not only did she do that, not only did she injure the student, but she injured the classroom. Because I've seen other footage, and I'm telling you, them students was dragging her ass for filth, as they should. And in those videos, I will say this, and this is not a credit to her. She sounded like, okay, I didn't mean it to go that far. Okay. Well, professor, if you didn't mean it to go that far, then you should be the first one demanding that charges against this young lady are dropped. And you should be the first one to apologize to that person. And if you're raising a mouthy Black girl, an intelligent, bold Black girl, I hope that you don't look at something like this and say, always back down. I hope that you tell them, stand your ground. And I'm not saying you tell them to be disrespectful, but there's nothing that should have prevented her from continuing on with the conversation before it was escalated by the cops upon the watch of the teacher to the point to where she's facing 2 misdemeanor charges. That is ridiculous. That is abuse of power. That is weaponizing the police. And that is something that prospective students are going to have to think about when considering that, or when they decide, if people want to decide to re-enroll to the next year. This is egregious. It's disgusting. And I'm sick of people thinking that they can treat young Black women, and if this was a young Black man, I would say the exact same damn thing any old kind of way. And for this to happen in an HBCU,
and see, and that is what I think. What bothers me here is a classroom discussion argument. And look, I've had my fair share of debates and back and forth with college professors. But that should not lead. That shouldn't lead to police charge. In fact, the DA should come out right now and say, We ain't pursuing this crap.
Exactly.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. Hey,
Thank you.
Roland, can I add one other thing I think is really important? And my colleagues, the points they make is very important. Lastly, I think the point is really important in terms of, it was a Harvard study that came out a few years ago to found Black folks, when they come in contact with law enforcement, are 2 to 3 times more likely to be killed. Like we've just talked about that. So just that interaction dramatically increased the likelihood that she could end up dead. And I think that's really important in terms of, and I talked about what does it mean to be Black and free in America, and particularly at HBCU, that she put her life in danger dramatically by even calling the cops in that interaction. So that's a really important point I think we also should keep in mind.
Look, it is just, this is the crap that we have to deal with all the time. And here's the other piece. If you were a college professor, and again, I remember, again, I was at Texas A&M, and this professor really got upset because I disagreed with her opinion. I mean, she was yelling and screaming, and I literally said, "Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't realize you were God." And I made it clear, I am going to disagree with you. These things happen. The job of the professor, and this is the key, the person who is the one who should be de-escalating is the professor. And second of all, what you don't do is demand someone apologize. What you say is, young lady, you and I can have this conversation after class. I have office hours, but I'm going to be moving forward with the rest of the class. There's a way for you to do it. If you're going to tell a student to redo an assignment, you don't do it in front of the other students.
Absolutely.
Because guess what? Folks don't show out.
And can I just add?
I'm just saying.
Edited out of the video.
Hold on. One second. After this point here. And if the student continues to be unruly, if the student is yelling and screaming, the professor should say, "Let me know when you're done." And what you do, you don't heighten tensions. You sit there and let them show their ass, and you sit there and say, "Are you now done?" And then you say, either take your seat or you're more than welcome to lead today's class. Now I'm going back to work. Yeah. You don't. And here's the last point.
Exactly what I said.
If the professor was not the one who called the cops, when the cops show up, gentlemen, I have this under control. I don't need your assistance on this. That is how you handle it. Reese, go ahead. And that would be the video that's also made available. Go ahead.
And I just wanted to point out one more thing too. The way that the exchange started was there was a fire alarm that was going off, and the young lady was on the way, out because there was a fire alarm going off when the teacher started the confrontation. So it wasn't like she was in the back of the room and they were yelling at each other or anything like that. I mean, it was because of the fire alarm going off that she was even having any kind of passing by the teacher or anything. So I know some people probably just think that she was just out there acting a plum fool and starting stuff with the teacher, but that is not at all what happened.
Again, this is a perfect example we talk about when cops don't de-escalate. If you're dealing with young people, even college students, you're the grown-up. You're the one who should be in control of the situation. And what you do is recognize, I'm not going to allow this thing just to continue and just go on and on and on. And Winston-Salem State, I've been to that campus. I've spoken on that particular campus. The university administration, they should be calling for these charges to be dismissed. This is not how you handle academic disagreements between a student and the professor. You do not bring in the criminal justice system. This is an academic situation. You handle this internally. You do not go to the criminal justice system. I do not care. All right, folks, back to our Roland Mark Unfiltered video in just one moment. When you talk about blackness and what happens in black culture, we're about covering these things that matter to us, speaking to our issues and concerns.
This is a genuine people-powered movement.
There's a lot of stuff that we're not getting. You get it, and you spread the word.
We wish to plead our own cause. Too long have others spoken for us. We cannot tell our own story if we can't pay for it.
This is about covering us.
Invest in black-owned media.
Your dollars matter. We don't have to keep asking them to cover our stuff. So please support us in what we do, folks.
We want to hit 2,000 people, $50 this month, raise $100,000. We're behind 100,000, so we want to hit that. Y'all money makes this possible.
Checks and money orders go to P.O. Box 57196, Washington, D.C. 20037-0196. The Cash App is $RM Unfiltered. PayPal is R Martin Unfiltered. Venmo is RM Unfiltered. Zelle is Roland at RolandSMartin.com.